after we did the pilot. They said, congratulations, you've been picked up. My agent called me. I said, oh, how wonderful. He said, they just want to know who's going to run the show. I said, what do you mean? They said, who's going to run I said, well, I assume me. And he said, well, you've never run a show before. I said, okay, but I did the pilot. It was good enough to get picked up to series, so I'll do more like that. And he said, this is now a multi-million-dollar operation. They're not going to trust you, some kid, to run a show. I said, well, then I quit. And he said, don't get so excited. Why are you always quitting? I said, because if I don't run my show, it's not going to be the show. I have my life and my stories are in here. And he said, all right, let me see what I can do. And he calls me back and he says, good news. They're going to let you co-run the show with a guy who's had experience before. And I said, oh, if you put it that way, I quit. And he said, why? I said, because I know how this works. The guy who's had experience is now the boss and it's now his show. And you're just humoring me by saying I'm co-running the show. So I quit, tell him I quit, don't call me anymore. And I hung up the phone and my wife said, why are you sad? And I said, because I think they're going to do my show now without me. I lived in a world for 3 days where they were doing my show without me. But on the third day, I got a call from my agent. They're going to let you run the show. I said, what? Why? They said, because they liked the way you handled the thing with the actress the first time you quit. It showed
the guy
integrity. Maybe this guy knows something that we don't. Maybe it is his vision. Maybe we go with that. I earned their respect without trying to. I wasn't playing. I was seriously quitting both times because it needed to be. Not every show. I wouldn't do this on every show, but this was my show.